In mid-September, I received a call from a MAiD provider telling me that Paul had initiated the assessment process. I was gobsmacked. Not that Paul wanted MAiD, but that he'd been able to navigate the complexity of self-referring. This was a man who had difficulty dialing the phone. 10 years earlier, Paul had been diagnosed with Parkinson's at 54 years old. We were hopeful. He was young and strong, like Michael J. Fox. Within 2 years, his cognitive ability was declining and he walked with a cane. Within 4 years, he lost his driver's license and had episodes of delirium. After 6 years, he was no longer the man I had fallen in love with. Eventually, he was hospitalized for a full-blown psychotic break. He never lived with me again. Every time he saw me or spoke with me, he became delusional and paranoid. It was heartbreaking. Sitting at my desk after hanging up the phone, I realized just how truly awful his suffering was. I wouldn't have wanted to live like he did, but I was still surprised and taken aback. I was also very proud of him. He knew what he wanted, and I was committed to supporting him. The process was long and uncertain. It was excruciating. We were terrified that he would not be approved for MAiD. After an initial negative assessment, he started a new medication to manage his delusions, and he was approved. It had taken about 3 months, the minimum for someone without a terminal illness. But still, it seemed like an eternity because of the uncertainty and our fear about what would happen if he wasn't approved. On December 1st, Paul set his MAiD date for December 14th. He also decided to donate his organs. This meant he had to die in hospital and spend one of his last precious days being typed and tested and matched to potential recipients. Unbeknownst to us, it also meant one final eligibility assessment by a doctor we'd never met, just 3 days before his date. After chatting with Paul for a while, this new doctor said, "You don't have bad Parkinson's. I've seen people with bad Parkinson's." My heart sank. I was terrified. But Paul didn't flinch, continued describing the physical, emotional, and psychological pain he suffered and the hopelessness of knowing it would only get worse. At the end of the assessment, the details of his death were finalized. As Paul spent time with friends and family saying goodbye, he was jovial and buoyant, breaking the ice by saying, "So, I'm going to die next Tuesday." He joked and reminisced, explained his decision when asked, and justified his choice to die 10 days before Christmas as an opportunity to give a wonderful gift to the recipients of his organs and their families. I'm ashamed to say I didn't attend all those family and friends' visits. Some days were just too heavy, and I couldn't get myself out of bed. Paul spent the night before in his own bedroom at home. As a family, we talked about good times at the cottage and old family war stories. Paul had his favorite dessert, Neapolitan ice cream. So familiar, almost normal. The next day, we all met at the hospital at 10 a.m. The MAiD team was there, but we waited for hours for the medications to be delivered. Paul got increasingly anxious and uncomfortable. It was hard for me to watch. I knew how he felt. Once they started Paul's IV, his whole demeanor changed. He sat up, relaxed. He asked our oldest son to play some music and sent the youngest to get him a Kit Kat bar. We all chatted easily until the doctor returned to ask Paul for his final consent. Paul locked eyes with him and said clearly, "I don't want to die, but I want you to help me end my life today with MAiD." I know he's forgiven me for all the ways I felt I'd let him down over the past few years. That guilt is slowly lifting. In those final months and moments, Paul never wavered, and neither did I.